gym. Check him out squatting with an interesting way of keeping the weights on the bar. If you think this is easy, those weights keep everything destabilized. So what has to be?
The rubber bands do?
The rubber bands do. So, David, what do you need to engage?
You have to engage your core, keep your balance, and squeeze everything from the inside out. And, I mean, look, you see the weights bouncing, and if you don't stay square and level and balanced, you're going to fall to one side and not be able to do it.
100%.
That's difficult. That's incredible.
What's up, CC? Go ahead and speak on it.
If you don't have the right technique, let me tell you something. You can get a case of hemorrhoids there. Let me tell you something.
Well, that ain't going to ruin your NFL career, but a back
engage your core and also engage your
glutes?
Yes.
I think it's a hernia. I'm not sure.
I think you can get all of the above, but I do want to point out to the audience, in case they didn't notice, what my lovely and talented partner Jenna Wolf did there. She was so like a proud parent that David Diehl, a professional athlete, understood. It's like, yes, your core. That is what that exercise does.
How many opportunities
David
do I
Diehl
get
has
to
done
know
a little
more than
working out in his life, I would
It's
imagine.
hard sitting next to you to know something that you don't know.
Well, all right, fair enough. I didn't know nothing about this.
Jenna, let me tell you something. You know a lot of things he doesn't know. He just won't admit it. He's like, you know that, Nick?
He
He did that to me, and I said, man, you watch Michael Jordan? Yeah, I watched all these.
Oh, no.
And I was like, Nick, can you prove that? Then he gave me that look.
I can prove it. Check my internet history. Don't do that, actually.
Oh, my gosh. All right, let's talk some football. The 2018 quarterback shakeup is in full swing. Case Keenum is out of the mix. Kirk Cousins is very much in the mix. The options for Cousins now appear to be the Vikings, the Jets, and the Cardinals. Reports are Cousins looking for a deal that would pay him upwards of $90 million guaranteed. There's so much money going around. David, what do you think is the best fit for Kirk Cousins at this point?
For me personally, I think this is an easy answer. I think the perfect fit for him would be the Minnesota Vikings. I think when you look at their team, when you look at their roster, Stephon Diggs, Thielen, Rudolph, Jarius Wright coming off of the bench, and a running back in Cook coming off of injury, that gives him the pieces around him that he needs to be able to function in an up-tempo offense where he can plant his foot in 3, 5, 7, and with tempo get that football out of his hand. Not to mention, who is going there? John DeFilippo, the offensive coordinator, just left Philadelphia, now is in Minnesota. He will be able to tailor a game plan that is going to be specific to the strengths of Kirk Cousins, to this football team, and that gives him the best opportunity to succeed. Not just talking about money, but on the football field. That's where I think he can thrive.
But is he... go ahead.
I've talked the last couple of weeks, Jenna and David, about Cousins going to Minnesota. It's fairly obvious as far as the team that's around him. I believe that there is a drop-dead number because they have such a strong roster, because they have signed guys who they have drafted to their second contracts. I believe that there's a point where they'll get out of the game. Also, they made a decision by letting Case leave the building that they have substantial interest in these other free agent quarterbacks. We know they called Drew Brees. Right now, I would say that Kirk Cousins is probably their favorite because they don't know if Drew Brees is going to be available. But I like to make a case for the other teams now. So I've talked enough about the Vikings. The Jets, they have the most salary cap room. He would be going to an NFC that, Nick, you and I have been going over, the AFC. He would be going to an AFC where, man, this thing is not top-heavy as far as quarterbacks in the AFC. His ability to be able to win against the Dolphins and Tannehill, whoever they're going to have in Buffalo. And listen, I don't care how many avocados Tom Brady eats. I don't care how many documentaries he got. At one day, he got to walk off that field. I mean, he's 40 now, so how long is that going to last? So it has to be advantageous to go to the Jets where he can get the type of money that is just drop dead money. Like, after I sign this contract, man, I could just drop dead because I've made enough money. But also, I believe he can help shape an organization. He can help shape a culture, which very seldom are you ever going to. They already have a culture in Minnesota. They have somewhat of a culture that Bruce Arians created there in Arizona. But I believe that Arizona, he has a family member there. Larry Fitzgerald signing on for potentially his last year, retiring as a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players that's ever played for the Cardinals. So I believe that there is something pulling on him there. But the Jets and his ability to be at the top of the AFC as far as quarterbacks, that's got to be on his mind and realize, I don't care what offense they run. That's a good fit because that's something that he's never had.
Are we possibly making Kirk Cousins out to be bigger and more important than he is? I mean, we're talking about him as a difference maker to an entire organization when what do we really even know? I don't know what he did with Washington.
Here's the thing. He had 3 straight years, 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns. A short list of guys that have done that.
And yet, what did the team say?
The team walked away. Listen, I am not.
But it was a money thing, too.
It was a money thing, yep.
What Chris is saying is interesting to me because I think everyone acknowledges if the money's equal, go sign with the Vikings. They are obviously better than Arizona.
Yes.
They're obviously better than the Jets. Now, if I'm the Vikings, I don't know if I think that's the best option. I've talked about this many times. I think there are multiple ways to get to championship contention in the NFL. The way I haven't seen it done is paying a mid-tier, above mid-tier, but not elite quarterback money. I think that's the best way to get stuck in neutral. I think when you look at the quarterbacks who have competed for championships, it's guys on rookie deals, future Hall of Famers, or guys that had their MVP year that year, like Cam did, like Matt Ryan did. So what we haven't seen is Joe Flacco post-contract. Ryan Tannehill, because he got a lot of money. People forgot that. Andy Dalton, given what the scale was, he got a lot of money.
Yep.
Those teams have not competed for titles. It's one of the reasons, by the way, I'm curious what the Raiders will be. Because where is Derek Carr? Is he going to be one of those?
Detroit.
Right, Detroit. I've talked about Matt Stafford. So on the Jets, what is interesting about the Jets is what CeCe alluded to, and I brought this up to Coach Mangini a while back, and he dismissed it, but I think you've got to do this math. All right, who's in my division, who is in my conference, who is in my way? In the NFC, here's who's in your way. Aaron Rodgers. Drew Brees for at least the next couple of years. Carson Wentz for the next 15. Russell Wilson for the next 10. That doesn't even get to Cam, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott. That's 10 guys I've listed. In the AFC, who's in my way? Tom Brady, who's 40. Big Ben, who's talked about retirement.
Looks like he's 40.
Phillip Rivers, who's in the same class as Big Ben. Andrew Luck, who's coming off shoulder surgery. Deshaun Watson, who's coming off a torn knee. That's your list.
That's 5 guys.
If you're as good as you believe you are, Kirk Cousins, then don't you want to go somewhere where you can almost instantly be one of the premier quarterbacks? I get it, the Vikings have the better team. But if you're the force multiplier, you can be the guy that attracts people to New York. They got the money. It's a great market. Like, it's a winnable division aside from the Patriots. Like, the Dolphins and the Bills aren't scaring anybody. That does make them interesting.
But look at when Kirk Cousins doesn't have an offensive line, which the Jets need to address.
Yep.
And they need to address the wide receiver position. Who's he throwing it to? We all saw the issues that Kirk Cousins has when he doesn't have that supporting cast around him. He's not a quarterback that can put a football team on his back and carry you to a win. He has proven that, and he has shown that he doesn't have that ability. So when we saw with Terrell Pryor and with all the different receivers he had last year, the inefficiency, and then Chris Thompson goes out, what's to say right now with New York that hasn't made any significant moves offensively that they're going to do that? Because
so if he's
you can
not
go
that
out and
guy,
pay this money to him as a quarterback, but if you don't address the offensive line, he's going to be a bad quarterback making almost $30 million a year.
Let me ask you this. If he has those deficiencies, if he needs the stability in wide receiver, if he needs a great offensive line, then is he worth $30 million a year? Or are you just paying for what is a unicorn in pro football, which is a good quarterback who's a true free agent? Because that's what it feels like it's happened to me.
Well, this is the thing. First of all, we have to adjust. The salary cap's approaching $180 million.
Yes.
Okay? So we've never seen this before. So if you're paying a guy $25 to $30 million, it's not as relevant as it was 5 years ago. It's not in the Flacco era. And the reason why, Jenna, you say, well, how the heck do we know? Because of those numbers and because of the contracts Andy Dalton got and some of these other quarterbacks that are mid of the pack or below the top 16 guys into the league. So they've had these demands. He is a free agent, so that makes the demand even go up more. Man, he is more than a competent quarterback. All right, you took away 2,000-yard receivers in Pierre Garçon, and he has significant problems on the offensive line, and he still put up over 4,000 yards. So a bad quarterback could not do that.
I have a quick question. If Cousins ends up going to the Jets, and if Breeze ends up staying in New Orleans, what options do the Vikings have at this point?
Well,
Maybe that could be why they're dangling a little bit more out there.
And that's why they're finding themselves in trouble, because they didn't do anything with Case Keenum. Now he's out of that mix to secure him. So if you don't secure Kirk Cousins, now what are you going to look? You're going to look back to Teddy Bridgewater, maybe A.J. McCarron. You're going to have to figure out something in your organization if these two who you were banking on don't pan out.
And with Case being off the market, I believe things will happen very fast.
Yes.
Drew Brees has the deadline. In the next 2 days, I look for 2 or 3 of these quarterbacks to be totally out of commission.
Plus, the Broncos have 57 quarterbacks they used last year. Anyway. David, thank you so much for
Always a
hanging with
pleasure.
us.
Good seeing you.
Absolutely.
Coming up for the Cowboys, about to sign a 5-time Pro Bowler. It's next on First Things First.
Cece, can I